latest project.
Guy in Catalina, he was. I like retirement, you know, it wasn't a business thing. Supplemented when I need. That's really cool. You know, whenever we come, I'm always up for this time, especially in Santa Barbara. Pleasant place to be.
Yeah.
She was so.
6 meters.
No.
You know, that's how we're cheating.
I'm sure we can get into it.
You're talking to the
Yeah, the microphone and the speakers in that little flat thing. So it's real good. It can pick up things. There's a little, it'll show you which side, which microphone.
I don't have to deal with it, right?
The what?
I don't have to deal with this.
No. It's all automatic.
elevation. I mean,
There's a little
sometimes I have trouble with the net control.
delay.
But it's all okay now, and
How many people you think are on it, Brad?
But
Now, hold on, let me get this off the screen there.
curious, talking to the guy or checking in with the guy in San Diego who's gonna relay me to the net control.
It only shows 4 on the screen at the moment. A lot of people, 4 on the screen. A lot of people like
Yeah.
wait till the minute it's gonna start. There you go, there's another one. See,
Ham radio operators, I thought they were most social. We get to hear about.
Microphone plug.
CV.
I have the radio. I have the radio.
Well, break it down like one station on Monday, on Saturday.
On his side, and that, the San Diego.
couldn't figure out why the sound was coming out.
What do you?
Homework and work. Never like.
Play another two.
Yeah.
You're not that.
Yeah, by the way.
Where's the rest of them, Larry?
Yeah, right. So you don't have a lot of elevation.
Usually go over the well. Still. Enough money. That's a bird too here.
Yeah, you can tell me everything, all the after details too.
Tip 31.
Yeah, as it was here, I thought it was in Santa Barbara, but this is the latest.
It is 7:31.
Yeah, I thought the Santa Barbara also.
It's okay, we got 6 in there now. Get some more in here.
Yeah, probably over 400. Whatever, you're the one that's supposed to.
You're a
be.
half hour.
You can broadcast this.
I'll get there.
Yeah, yeah.
It's kind of cool.
It's the new rover over there.
Yeah, I think these guys actually.
People raising in Washington.
Yeah, on Saturday.
Chicken.
I think that make it an exception.
Have it on a fire.
Yeah.
See anybody else out there in the parking lot?
There's somebody talking.
Oh.
I can't. I don't know what they're saying. I'm working at Impulse right now. The last 2 weeks, I've been working until 2 in the morning. Back at 6, right? Yeah, so for my ratings, your service is just.
He stole his chair.
Oh, I stole that. I was gonna ask. I have those things.
No, I'm up here.
Flying.
You're driving the bus.
Yeah. You can see through that. We got a camera up there.
Yes, it's the Arizona.
Right, I mean.
No, actually, that is the better way to do it, because when you're within Zoom and you're switching between screens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's get started here. I know that it's-
Yeah.
Be-
Everyone ready?
I know 3 or 4 more people that are supposed to be here in Zoom, so
Very quiet.
I don't know where they are,
Picture of them in Montana back.
but let's get started. All right, let's say the Pledge of Allegiance.
Oh, now we have to get back up.
Carol, which one of those drawings is yours? I didn't get it. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, well, thanks. Wait a minute. Yeah, I got a text here, maybe
I don't
somebody.
think you where you're at.
Me,
Bye.
It's teacher. You're the teacher.
Oh, yeah, they want to see, I got a request, okay, I guess that's what they're seeing on, Levi, I think, is watching it on YouTube. Okay, well, thanks everybody for coming. We haven't had a real speaker here for a little while, so I talked to Gene after one of our Zoom meetings one night, and he was telling me all about these things that they do with the weather sondes, and they have a crew that goes out and hunts them down after they come down and bring them back, and they're full of goodies in there, good parts. And he repurposes them and sends them back up in the air again with cameras, and he's going to tell us all about that. As long as everybody's here, let me bring you up to date on what we're doing with the tower collapse. We're meeting with some guys from the city next week. I think it's next week, 26th or something. And we were pretty much invisible up there for a long time, and then the tower fell down. Now all of a sudden they're all wondering what we do up there, and you know, how come we had a 400-pound antenna hanging on this little tower? You know. So hopefully it'll be a good meeting. Turns out I know one of the guys. I went to school with them way back in junior high school, and hopefully it'll work out okay. The huh? Yeah, we rode the same bus from Montecito into school every day. We've replaced we just finished replacing a couple of weeks ago the microwave link from the Mesa to St. Ines Peak. We replaced it with more carrier grade equipment, and it's got a solid connection. The antenna that we used to use was 48 inches or thereabouts, and we replaced it with a 21-inch dish, and we've got all the bandwidth we could ever use. So it's a rock solid connection. We're going to be doing the same thing with Santa Cruz Island. That is barely faster than an old-fashioned modem. And we really struggle with keeping that up and keeping the link open for the repeater and the camera and everything else out there. It goes down frequently and comes back up again. And so we're going to be using a 41-inch dish with the same radios that we use for St. Ines Peak on that. And we're going to get that antenna off the Mesa too, and that's going to go up to I think to La Cumbre Peak. So, and we already have a real high bandwidth link from La Cumbre Peak to the Red Cross. So we're just about all repaired, and we've improved everything. And I think that will no longer be a big maintenance issue, and we'll have things will be real solid with the repeaters and the network links. From here on out, the big if is when are we going to get to Diablo Peak? And so we'll have to have everything ready. So, you know, if a helicopter pulls in the parking lot and says, hey, you guys want to go for a ride? We'll be ready. So,
Air fiber out there too.
huh?
Air fiber out there.
Yeah. Yeah, they really work nice.
What, a 41-inch or?
41-inch. Yeah. And it actually turned out, even though La Cumbre Peak is farther away than La Vigia on the Mesa, it's a better shot, and it's above the marine layer too. So that'll be nice. It's high. The other one's at 2,400 feet. And that's probably close to that. So most of the time it'll be completely over the marine layer. So hopefully we'll have a much better connection. I really want to start. Our camera's capable of doing much better video than it's doing. It can do 4K video. And I'd really like to bump that up so we get some quality video back. If you go down to the Carpinteria station and look, they have a whole wall full of these cameras on all the Channel Islands, all these California islands. And they're all, you know, high def, birds chirping, you know, all that stuff. And ours looks like, you know, a Charlie Chaplin movie or something. But once we have good bandwidth out there, we should be able to use those capabilities, and that'll be nice. And let's see if I got anything else. No, that's about it. Oh, is anybody interested in doing field day this year? You are?
We'll get done.
Okay.
Always fun.
Huh?
Always fun.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, if we can get interest, you know, we put stuff up in the past 2 or 3 years and didn't get any interest at all. So if you guys are interested, we'll start making some plans for doing something for field day.
Prime.
Yeah.
Is it the 24th and 25th of June again? With Saturday and Sunday?
Probably. Is that Father's Day?
No, I think that's Father's Day is the 18th. It's
Yeah,
the week
the week
before.
after Father's Day.
Yes, it'll be the week after Father's Day.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that
Did you have a venue in mind?
Not yet, but I don't think we'll have it up at Big Trace. Anyway, I think that's about it. I'll introduce Gene. Call sign is WB9COY. And I'll turn it over to him, and I'm sure we're going to enjoy the presentation.
Well, thank you, Brian, and honored to be in front of the Santa Barbara Radio Club. In WB9COY, originally from Chicago. I got my ham ticket when I was 13 years old as WN9COY. Maybe some people recognize the novice call. They had 1 year to renew and get into your general, or else it would just expire. So that was a big deal to go from novice to tech or general. And I remember going downtown Chicago, Federal Building at 13 years old. Today would be child abuse. I mean, I rode my bike to the Mount Prospect train station, got on board, and to this day, I remember all the business guys making sure I made it to the Federal Building. Over here, Grand Central Station, Bob. So I get up to the 22nd floor of this huge building where the FCC was, and on paper tape, took my Morse code test. So anyway, that's where the B9 comes from, and I just said, you know, that's my call. I'm just going to keep it. I know it's out of character for 6, but I'll stay with the 9 for now. So Brian mentioned during one of the Zoom meetings, there was a discussion, open discussion about weather data collection. I guess there's quite a few hams here in Santa Barbara that have weather stations. I said, well, hey, I actually work with some of the weather service stuff in the form of radio zones. I'm going to pass this around. So the weather service launches 2 of these a day on balloons. They go up, you collect data, and they fall back to Earth. And so these sounds are actually very capable. You've got an ARM processor on board. They have a GPS unit. You've got an RF deck. I mean, this stuff is like ham radio mecca. So we actually monitor the weather services OEM launches in San Diego. They're around 400 megahertz or so. And we track these things to the ground. And we make little spreadsheet notes where the coordinates are on the ground. And about every 2 weeks or so, there's a group who loves going out hiking and stuff, and they go out and get a bunch of these. So we've got a whole barrel full of these things right now. This is a Geo Prize. So kind of what's available to the ham radio community is a reflash of the radio zones. There's a group in Australia that really kind of spearheaded the ham radio build that you can reflash these with. And that reflash puts them in the ham band and uses 4 FSK. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that waveform, 4 FSK waveform, which provides the ability to actually get a lower signal to noise ratio, where we can hear these things like at minus 112. And so that's why we can hear them all the way to the ground. So that was kind of nice. We did a few of these launches with the kids, worked with a group in San Diego, Montgomery High School. And we're going, wow, kids are kind of like, okay, we launch these things with the group, they go up, they come down. What other interesting things can we do? And I said, well, I think I could put a camera on these things. And so I did. So I came up with my own ham radio build. And on board is a little camera. This is a live shot, not a live shot, but a shot from what came to the ground. And some of the pictures we're getting are just very good for just a small little weather zone. So I'm going to pass some of the stuff around. Tom, you could look in here. This is the actual circuitry. This is a bad board, so don't worry about breaking it or anything. You can look it over, pass it around. So next slide. So here's a group I have to give credit to. There's 5 of us all together. Here's the 4. Bill Carn, K9Q. K9Q is pretty famous ham. He actually invented, if you did any kind of packet work, he invented the KISS modem. So he's the father of KISS on the APRS side. Jim, he's the Zoom spot guy. Ever hear of Zoom spots?
Yeah.
Well, he's the inventor of the Zoom spot. This case is ZUM. Randy, he's the guy who did the mountaintop receiver sites. We're gonna look at some of his presentation later on. And David White is school logistics, and ground logistics, gas for the balloon launches and whatnot. But we've been together for well over 10 years, and we've been having a blast with high altitude weather balloons, and now it's zones. Relaunching zones for the benefit of just, STEM education. Okay, next slide. So here's the system in a nutshell. So I'll move over here because Brian said that you can still see me over here. This is an oversimplification, but here's the radio zone. And kind of digging into the camera protocol. So what we do is we transmit out to these ground stations a start image message. Now, I also cover that with Reed Solomon. You guys heard of Reed Solomon before? It's a forward air correction routine. A lot of that stuff's in your cell phone. And so I cover that with Reed Solomon, so that message is going to be very strong. It's going to be coded and strong, so I know when to get on the train. So once I have this image start decoded, then what I'm expecting after that is a bunch of sequence data. So what's in that sequence data is the JPEG. So the camera takes the JPEG, we get the entire image, and we chop it up into 64 bytes. Each one of those 64 bytes is a sequence. So sequence number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's 64 bytes at a time until we've chopped up the entire, or we sent the entire JPEG. So that's what this image sequence data stuff, and then with image stop. Image stop tells the system, hey, put it all back together. And how this put it all back together kind of works is we got the ground stations simultaneously receiving the zone, and it's transferring nothing but image sequences. And so the design behind that is that one station misses, let's say, sequence number 12. It's random number 12. But another ground station got sequence number 12. I have the ability now to keep putting that picture together. So power numbers is good. Our early implementations, if we only had one ground station, we would get back pictures with, just really not good quality, a lot of misses and stuff. But we have multiple stations now on mountaintops in San Diego. We have Otay, and we have Toro Peak near Palm Springs that receive this, and ground stations alike, school stations, people at home. And so we're able to put all the sequence data over the cloud, comes to an aggregator, and this happens to be GoDaddy. So I run a GoDaddy server, which is based on Node.js. And then this aggregator puts all the sequences together and then gives me a nice, what it can construct a JPEG picture. And then that JPEG picture gets presented to whomever is wanting to view it. We'll look at that website further down here. So that's the system simplified. I'll pass along the ground station. So this is the ground station.
So how do you get, with the 4 ground stations, are you getting 100% of the data at this point? Or is it
We actually have like 6 ground stations, and a high percentage of the time we do get a full picture. It's amazing. I'll sort of show some of those full pictures later on, but yeah, we're getting some good results with this. What's interesting is that the power is peanut power on the zones. They're only 16 dBm, which is less than a milliwatt. The whole system runs on 2 AA batteries. You can see there's stuff going around. On 2 AA batteries, we'll get like 10 hours of operation. It's you can't improve on that much more. If you go out there and get them, we'll reflash what we need to do. So we'll talk a little bit about the sensors later on, but that's the basic operation. Sequence data, ground stations, aggregator, JPEGs, all in the ham band using GFSK waveform. So next slide, Brian. A little bit about the inside of this thing. Mentioned a few already. So we have The centerpiece is a STM F100 ARM CPU, very capable CPU. It's underneath the battery case. So if you look at the batteries there, underneath it is the little chip, the ARM processor. So that's this guy. He's the centerpiece. He hooks up to a RF deck, the SI 4032 Silicon Labs. There's the peanut power, 16.3 dBm. You communicate to the RF deck from the CPU with SPI bus. I don't know if you guys are familiar with SPI bus, but it's a protocol. And then the ARM has an A to D converter. When we take to the onboard, this is on board, and we have to add it. Comes on board with a battery voltage sensor and internal temperature. So we're able to transmit both battery voltage and, I forgot to mention, but I will, the GPS receiver. That's a U-Blox, very capable receiver. When this thing locks on, it does a great job. It doesn't give up. So it's good equipment. We got a good RF deck, we got a good GPS receiver, we got ADD converters. And so it was just, easy pickings to use that one UART that's still available that nobody's used to do the camera. So the camera is a TTL based JPEG camera. And we just basically plug it into one of the ports that are on the side of the unit. So as that thing went around, you'll see in the back of it, there's a little port. That's where the UART is, and that's where we plug the camera. So I'll show you some more detail that later on. And this little kind of, you can peruse this with some of the peripherals on the STM. Okay, Brian, next slide. So here's a little bit about the camera. I'm going to pass the camera around. Some more goodies. That's what's actually inside the little camera like that. So that camera, I bought him off of eBay for 21 bucks. Come from China, and she worked well. So take the camera, go ahead and put a special connector on it. So that special connector is a little hard to find, but I found a source for it on DigiKey. So we go ahead and take the connector, hook her up to the camera. And I got so lucky here. As I'm doing the project, I went, well, how in the world am I gonna get this camera on this thing? I said the best thing in the world would actually have it inside somehow, some way, because batteries actually help heat it on the way up. The batteries, as they discharge, they get hot. And all that heat that's inside the styrofoam, we want to keep that camera a little bit, warm. So I found a little space. I took a knife, carved it out, and I was able to seat that thing right in the styrofoam case. So that's where it will be positioned in the styrofoam case. And this is what it kind of looks like in its lower form factor. 2 AA batteries, and there's the connector for the camera. It just plugs in, very convenient, just plugs right on the side of this thing, provides power and the TTL connections. And that's how it kind of looks with when it's all up and ready to fly. And a close up of the back of the unit. So yeah, these things pop out of the sky twice a day. And when Vandenberg is launching, there's tons of these things flying. You guys should easily be able to hear some of these things going up at 400 megahertz. And there's tons of information how to stand up a ground station to receive these. So if you're interested, most of the guys in San Diego are just receiving these from their home stations, the OEM version.
It's typically vertically polarized.
Pardon me?
Typically vertically polarized.
Yeah, yeah. There's a little neck on the top of that thing that would hook up. Vertically polarized. So you can stand up a station of your own and copy these things. Amazingly, I can hear these things on my handheld. This handheld, I can hear the weather zones at 400 megahertz. It's amazing. Only 16 dBm. Our next slide, Brian.
Why do you want the heat? Is that to fight condensation on the camera?
Oh no, it gets up to like minus 50 up there when you're at altitude. So you start freezing stuff up. So any kind of heat that you can get in the less atmosphere, the more heat that stays near you. You can't dissipate unless you have air to get rid of it. So some of the problems in space are overheating. So we're just at that transition zone where the atmosphere is starting to disappear. Like we're at less, 5% atmosphere at best. And so we want to kind of heat it up a little bit. So we're running on most flights right -10 at 80,000 feet, about -10 degrees.
Keep the electronics going. It is your call, they stop working correctly.
It's a dual purpose, yeah. The ARM processor is not going to work at -70. I mean, but at -10, it'll work. And so those batteries, we use lithium-ion batteries. And those, when the batteries discharge, they actually radiate heat as they go. So it's a it's a good purposeful discharge. Gotta keep things warm. Here's the ground station. So the group did a project on LoRa. You guys ever hear of LoRa? It's a popular IoT protocol.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So that's the RFM95 board chip. That's on a hat for the Raspberry Pi. And so that chip does LoRa, but it also does FSK. So it supports both LoRa and FSK. And I went, oh, well, the phone is FSK. The chip can do FSK, so now I got a match. So I just wrote some software for the ground station that repurposed the LoRa chip into an FSK receiver. So that's what we use on the mountaintops and stuff for our receivers. We use Raspberry Pi 4 up on the mountaintops, but I use this in my car or roving when I'm tracking the flights. Does a pretty decent job, unbelievably. So any questions so far before we move on to the next slide?
Yeah, where do you find the Raspberry Pi Zeros?
I bought those pre-COVID.
Yeah.
I bought 5 of them. They were very well priced on Amazon. I said, okay, I'll buy a couple.
You could use any
And then
form factor though, right?
any Pi got,
Any
yeah.
Pi, yeah.
Yeah, it comfortably runs on to 0.
Yeah, because apparently you can get 3 pluses. I got a bunch of those.
I noticed on the phone, it looked as if there's both a whip antenna and on the board, it looked like there was another antenna.
Yeah.
There are 2 radios.
So the whip antenna is the 400 megahertz. Just a little sidebar on the antenna. We ran that antenna on our analyzers. We kind of just hooked up the LNA right to it. And the antenna is actually short. And so, believe it or not, to bring it in the ham bands, we actually have to add to it. So they're off frequency. So that whip antenna is for the UHF. The onboard antenna that you're seeing are for the GPS. And also there's a near field antenna too. So right by the battery connector, you'll see the near field.
Yeah, there's one on each side of it.
Yeah, they program them right on the spot with their ID and what not before they launch them. It's all automated system. So there's like, 100 of these things in a conveyor belt. It's amazing. We've seen these things at Miramar, how they do it. And yeah, they'll program what ID number it's supposed to be, what frequency it's supposed to be on. Some of the last minute launch details are near field programming. So there's a near field antenna right at the battery. And then the other one at the upper top is the GPS antenna.
That's a receiving antenna.
GPS receiver antenna.
Just one transmitter.
One transmitter, along with the NFS. So the NFS is self-decided.
So can you use the near field when you're going to launch, or do you just leave it? That's whatever they program it for you to use.
Well, we blow everything away. So it doesn't matter what they do. It becomes our processor, our own. And so whatever's in there is now ours. So we just really haven't had a reason to look into the near field.
There's a flash in there and you're just re-flashing it basically.
Yeah, ARM flash, onboard flash of the ARM. JTAG.
Which is the GPS?
Thing with the proximity cards.
Proximity card, yeah, there you go. Proximity, NFS, near field.
When do you remember what band of them? 13 right?
I don't know what band you run the near field on. So we didn't look there because we're interested in the GPS and the ARM and the transmitter. You get this thing going, so I don't have a lot of data on the NFS stuff. That's a good question though.
Is this the GPS antenna? In there?
No, it's more at the top. So the GPS chip is, for those guys at home, our GPS chip is right here. And the antenna is, it's carved out. Oh, there it is. It's right there. You see the,
Oh,
you
okay.
see the air
All right.
between there?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a. You're doing a really nice job with these zones. I mean, these things have got to cost hundreds of dollars or maybe it would cost us a ton of money if the hams were to produce it. But it takes a little bit of knowledge about, how to repurpose them, how to program. I use the SI QB, or I'm sorry, not the SI, the STM QB IDE. I was all written in C. And so you can debug the JTAG right on it and everything. Comes from a really good development suite. So it didn't take me long to start making these things do other things.
So if you get enough of them, I assume, if you collect enough of them, you can just keep reusing them
That's
forever.
what we do.
Or do you end up losing enough that you have to?
Oh, we lose them. Yeah, there's no woes me. So back in the early days of ballooning, our payloads were like $300+. And that would be a conservative estimate. And we were getting all of them back. We were, so right back in San Diego is this area called the Salton Sea. The weather patterns were so favorable, no matter what we predicted. There was like some kind of vortex right over the Salton Sea. We're hitting that Salton Sea all the time. We've got pictures of our payloads coming down, splashing down. You see it, and then waterfall poking at the payload. And also being the physics teacher went out one time because we were so adamant to get that particular payload back. We took a kayak out there and we got it. But now, we got probably 50 of these things on hand. We'll launch on a weekend. You say, okay, let's just launch one. A bunch of kids want to get together and launch one. They can do that too. So there's no woe is me if we lose one.
Percentage you get back.
There's actually guys so adamant about getting these things just because of geo prize. We'll get about 25% back. Because we're not predicting to try to land anywhere. Some of these things land in very uninhabitable areas. And so we just give up on those. But things that we can, some guys are, walking to them. It's amazing how many of these float out of the sky. People, aren't really aware of this. But if you start tracking these things, one of the hams, K9Q, it was like just down the street from him. So we just walked to it and picked it up. There it was. Got
You
one.
didn't know it, put a sticker on it instead of saying,
Oh.
recycle it, say, mail it to the ham.
Oh.
Yeah. So instead of that, have them
It says it's not dangerous.
So.
mail to WNC.
Please have mailed to Wuhan, China.
Yeah, there you go. We do put our own sticker on it. So we do identify ourselves. We've actually had to go into the BLM land that's restricted. And also SDG and E sites east of San Diego. And we say we're at the school. And we also, we'll get called. Somebody will call the number on that thing and say, hey, we got it. Okay, we'll come and get it. So it's just an easier, cheaper way to launch because it takes a lot less gas. I mean, I'll show you pictures of the. Can you go to the next slide?
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay. I'll just briefly go over this because I want to go over the picture of the balloon. There's the camera and the camera connector and the hi-hat URL if you guys are interested in doing this stuff. And go on to the next one.
Do you mind if I put these on our website?
Please, yeah, go
Okay.
ahead.
And
If people are interested in, going and doing it, you can. Here's some actual flight pictures. We have seen this several times. This is just south of the border. This is actually in Mexico. They call this the fish picture. It looks like a fish. We've hit that place a couple of times already. There's pictures of You know, that's the outer space right there. That's the abyss. There's the end of our atmosphere. There's the curvature of the earth. This is, I can never be more humbled every time we see pictures like this coming back to the ground, how fragile we are. And I just launched this thing from my school backyard. And within an hour or an hour and a half, I could see the end of what we exist on. So it's humbling, but also very rewarding. Let's go to the next slide. Oh, geotagging. Eventually we'll get to the balloon. So we did a launch. I put this up here because they're just coming out of the clouds. So just out of the clouds was this osprey going to Miramar. So we caught a picture of an osprey. So what I did was I geotagged all the pictures. So in the JPEG itself, I put the GPS coordinates. It's amazing what you can put inside a JPEG, and the JPEG doesn't care. You'll double click on it, it'll display, and you as a user have no idea there's other stuff in there, or can be. So you know, it shows you how you can either, you know, do things for a good reason with JPEGs, and I bet there's some bad things out there too. Hopefully your virus catcher will do that. But so that's inside the JPEG, and you can convert that into Google Map coordinates, and you can see where exactly on Google Map where that picture was taken. So let's go to the next slide.
How frequently can you take pictures? How fast?
We get a picture back every minute and a half.
Is this, the rate at which you're taking a picture? Every 90 seconds.
Yeah, about 90 seconds.
Yeah.
Well, actually, the rate goes faster, but our transmit is 9,600 baud. So it's about 40 kilobytes of JPEG. So it's 40 kilobytes in a minute and a half. That's our best rate. Here's the website for the Mount Carmel High School, call sign of the station for the school. And here is a list of mountaintops. I guess there was a question earlier, you know, how many are listening. So everybody that's got green has internet connectivity. So that means that station is hooked up and pinging back to the server. So I know you're live. If you see a number, that's the RSSI, that's the signal strength it's receiving the balloon at. So all these stations are aggregating to get pictures back. Here's where the balloon is, right there. And then here's some of the data that comes back from the sensors coming from the GPS receiver on board, battery, temperature, and then I just got that working, the pressure sensor. So these things come back with, if you look on the back of this thing, where's it at right now?
Oh, Ken has.
Back home?
You
On the back,
gotta watch him.
there's a little daughter card. I mean, I can't believe this hardware is just dropping out of this. Oh, the daughter card's not on this. Oh, what? There's a daughter card. I should actually have a picture of it that comes with it. It's a very, very capable pressure sensor. And so for the longest time, Ham's had a hard time figuring out how to like recover that pressure sensor. So can you go to the next slide? It's here. There's the source code. So you guys are interested. Here's the source code for the camera, payload, ground station, and then the server. You go to the next one, Brian. Okay, I'm going to pause at what I was just talking about and go back to student participation in the balloon. Maybe you make that just a little bit bigger. Can you zoom a little bit? If not, okay, we'll just take it like that. But we used to, when we were launching balloons 10 years ago, we had a lot of balloon to get our payloads up. Now we have this small little balloon here with very little gas. The flight costs are cheap. You can do them without worrying about retrieving the payload. And this is one of my favorite pictures. And what's so special about this picture, the mentors on the left got our hands in our pocket. The students insisted on this flight that they were going to do everything. So the way the students participate, they don't do the software, it's too advanced. They don't do the mountaintop or the ground or mountaintop receivers, but they're very comfortable with the launch logistics, and that's cool. You look at the data that's coming back, participate in getting their checklist all done and launching the balloon. So this is the level that students are at. And so these radio zones that we're repurposing have allowed us for the first time to just sit back and watch the students do stuff, as opposed to the old days where these got pretty complicated, battery sequences, startup sequences, that logistics are now at this where students can actually take it up and do it. Let's go to the next slide. Okay. So future projects. So there's that pressure sensor that I was talking about. So I was dead set on trying to figure that guy out. So I mentioned the Australians. They kind of spearheaded things. There's other hams in Europe. They're also reverse engineering this radio zone. So there are schematics online that the hams, best guess of what the schematic would look like, and it's pretty close. So I looked at the schematics, and I said, okay, this pressure sensor works on SPY bus. So then I put some blue wires on the SPY bus, and I hooked it up to a rather expensive SPY bus analyzer, and I was able to sniff the SPY bus packets down to the hex representations. And I figured out what it needed for calibration data, figured out how to ask it for data, and figure out how to tell it to give me the data, or go sample the data and then give me the data. So our pressure sensor is now enabled. So we have one more thing that we collect data on our flights. This is a camera that a failed effort. We didn't use that one. It didn't work out so good for us. So that's kind of the cool. It's adventurous, and then it spills into STEM and ham radio. For me, it's like a perfect technology playground.
The pressure sensor itself, what sort of bandwidth is that?
I don't see
Is it filtered or?
The level that I see it at is that we're way back in. It's already figured out how to give me a pressure number. So its output to me through the SPY bus is a float 32. I don't get to see all that other stuff inside. But if the weather service likes it, I'm sure it's just top-notch stuff. It looks pretty well put together. Interesting enough, if you look on the back of that sensor, there's yet another ARM processor. So the ARM processor that's running on the pressure sensor, he does all the stuff that you're just talking about, the pulsing and bandwidth and stuff like that, measurement stuff, analog type stuff, and converts it into a SPY bus communication spit out. So that's the level I was at. I was just on the SPY bus.
How many of these units come with the pressure? They all have the pressure sensors?
All of them that we've retrieved has this pressure sensor. Other hams have just like thrown it away. They said, don't do that anymore. We'll take them. Nobody's been able to figure it out yet, but it's on the web, so people probably start poking at it right now and saying, "Oh my gosh, they figured it out." One more thing that I'm working on is at the end of this. You can't see it because the board's turned over this way. There's a little stick in the OEM model that flies, and that stick that connects in here, there's a connector on the other side. So if you guys are looking at it, that stick has the humidity and the temperature, external temperature. So I'm working on that too. We can enable.
I saw it did give you a temperature. What was that from?
That was from another experiment that we did with a BME pressure humidity sensor. We just tacked it onto this thing. We used it. Not a very good little device at altitude. It would freeze up, literally freeze up, and also cause us to actually crash our software. We had to write a whole bunch of software around this BME thing to make sure that it wouldn't crash. I go, forget it, I'm done with that. It's flight risk. But we did collect at one time pressure, humidity, external temperature with a BME pressure sensor. But we're going up to the OEM stuff now. A lot more reliable.
That was designed to operate at altitude too.
Oh, yeah, everything.
Yeah.
So, let's see what the next slide is. It may be it.
Is this stick just the sensor or does it have electronics in it? Or are all the electronics on the board for the?
All the electronics are on the board and it's a stick. So it looks like a piece of, printed circuit board, or flexible printed circuit board. So that stick that comes out of it, it plugs into the OEM unit. Looks like a Raspberry Pi camera connector type of interface. And that's how they get the pressure, how they get the temperature and the humidity. The humidity data probably won't get because it has to be calibrated on the ground to get rid of whatever humidity is like in its area, so you can get an accurate reading at flight. Or if it gets in the clouds, they actually heat the humidity sensor back up to get rid of all that extraneous humidity. We're not going to go there. Maybe we will, but not right now. That's for sure. I'm going to go for the external temperature to see what happens there. So there's another presentation. So Randy, who is part of the group, this is kind of cool. This is probably the counterpart of emergency communications, the ham radio operators would do. Well, guess what? We found a new source for ham radio needs. This is through the Scripps Institute of Oceanography, SIO. So SIO, they launch radio zones just like this. And the purpose of their launch lately was to study the atmospheric rivers that ripped apart, Santa Barbara, Southern California. So they were doing quite a bit of research on these atmospheric rivers. You would launch their zones and you were having a really, really hard time hearing them. Well, through somebody, the word got off the Scripps that, hey, the hams can hear these things for long distances. So they call us up. They call Randy up and says, can you please record the data from these zones? Because we lose them almost, like we launch them and they're gone. So we heard, not only did they capture the atmospheric rivers, but they captured it long after it just, down to almost where it landed. So they got everything they needed. So we're building a good rapport with SIO. Who knows where that's going to come, where that relationship's going to extend to, but they're actually using our system for real. For real.
Change all your receivers to their frequency or?
Yes. Yeah.
Software, you have to put new antennas on and everything.
We're going to show you the rack that does all that stuff. It's going to be the last picture. Go ahead.
We work with them too.
Do you?
Yeah,
Right.
we have a bunch of AIS receivers. And
For aircraft.
for ships.
Oh.
And we work with the people that are doing whale research and trying to reduce, whale hits from these big ships and study their migration patterns and the ship patterns and all that. So we've been providing them data for probably 7 or 8 years now.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. So here's the SIO balloons that we were tracking. What if it lists the frequency on here? Somewhere I think it does. Oh, here it is. 405.3. That's a typical frequency for these zones. And here's where they stopped hearing it. And here's where we stopped hearing it. So we're really extending the range of their weather zoning using our mountaintop receivers, ground stations, whatnot. So this is a site called, it's not my presentation, you can't click on it, but if you can remember it, it's called Sound Hub. So Sound Hub is a URL that you can click on and you can see all the stuff coming right back to you. So our zones report the Sound Hub, and that's how we track it. So next slide, Brian. And that's just a kind of a 3D view of like, well, this is Washington, Catalina, okay? There's a 3D view of what it looked like through its flight path. For the next one. And that was Toro Peak. So another receiver site. That's off of Palm Springs. He was just another demonstration of the capability we got. He lost it way back here in Toro Peak. And Palm Springs picked it up. Oh my gosh, that's Kingman, Arizona. Holy smokes, that was a good flight. Just another 3D view of that. Good one. So here's the answer. Here's what a mountaintop rack looks like. We've got we call it the LoRa receiver, but it's really the FSK receiver. So that's my Raspberry Pi running the camera software on it. Pi 2 is running 2 SDR receivers for radio sounding. And I don't know what Randy added over here, another one. So we've expanded our capability beyond what I can even explain right now.
So basically on that board, that neck gear is probably consuming most of the power.
Well, we've got one, two,
There's about
3 Raspberry Pis. I would say the neck gear is,
half.
yeah, half, but we run off of 110. So power consumption wasn't in our design criteria. And there's no intent to bring this in an emergency yet. Does that give you a good pictorial of what these?
And then the antennas in the 440 band.
Yeah, the next slide, we'll look at the antenna. Oh, so this is an invention. We need to monitor both 400 range and the ham range. And so some of the microwave, San Diego Microwave Club, if you guys ever heard of those guys, Kerry Bakey, he designed a little filter for us, LNA on it also, that gives us this 2 bandpass type of thing. We receive this, the OEM weather zones, and then the ham band, which is our 4FSK build from the Australians, and then my build for the camera. You go to the next slide. There's the antenna. This homebrew inside a piece of PVC. And Randy's got all the preamps and everything, part of the installation here, all that is inside a piece of PVC pipe. It's a sleeve dipole where it is.
Right inside the
Yeah,
active antenna.
preamps is right inside here. Didn't show it, but it's inside. It's all homebrew. This is on Toro Peak. Up little mountaintop site. So the affiliation is through the PAPA system. You guys ever heard of the PAPA system?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the PAPA, I'm a member of PAPA. Also a member of Santa Barbara.
I'm a member of Papa too.
Are you?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So Papa led us up there. So Cecil, runs the whole shebang, says, oh yeah, for schools and SIO, yeah, you certainly can come up to our site. So not only went to Otay, we went up to, Toro went up to Otay too. Otay is on by the border. Covers a lot of South San Diego. But yeah, Randy built up this stuff. I just wanted to give him some credit and kind of show you the infrastructure that we use for those receivers. Show you the camera payload. Kind of fill you guys up with a bunch of ideas, ham radio ideas. So the hobby extends past radio check.
Yeah.
I think this might be the end of it.
The end of it?
Okay, so any questions from the audience? Anybody on Zoom, here in person?
Let's see. Anybody on Zoom have any questions?
That was awesome. Thank you.
Do you have a question?
The onboard memory, if you actually had to store additional sensor data or whatever.
onboard memory.
Opposed to dumping pictures, whatever.
Well, we have to look up the chip. It doesn't have a lot. Doesn't have a lot. So I was able to actually, so it's a STM F100. We can look up the spec right now and get that number. But what I did was, we have tests that we want to run to our infrastructure. So I was able to actually embed half a JPEG in the code. So the CS. So that'd be part of flash memory. So we have a mode that you can run this in without a camera and get an image. So I just did that with the debugger. Kept looking how much heap stack we got. All right, okay, there it is. I just started cutting the JPEG, just deleting stuff out of the JPEG until I hit that number. So I'm like 500 bytes from the end. So we could do that. So there's not a lot of code here. It's a capable processor, but it's certainly not like a Raspberry Pi implementation or anything like that. It's small but good. So STM F100 is the chip. Any other good questions?
No, you really I'm impressed. You can do all that stuff with like an Arduino, but you'd end up with something the size of a hand grenade by the time you're done, you know, with the.
A lot of wires. So we did our first flight ever. It's the first flight the group ever did, was with Arduino. And it was big. It was huge. I mean, the payload was, and the amount of batteries we had to put up, power everything. So how we found out about these zones, is that Phil Karn, K9Q, his neighbor, a high school kid who loves meteorology, got involved with monitoring these zones. And one day Phil was just talking to his neighbor and told him, oh yeah, these zones, I listen to them all the time. So Phil got really interested, and then we meet weekly. We have this weekly mentor meeting. And Phil goes, hey, I found out about this monitoring stuff. So we all started listening. And we said, well, let's go out and get some of these things. And then we found out the Australians have put ham radio builds together. We can repurpose this stuff. I was, wow, that was a big wow. From there, it just took off. So it was a lead from a high school kid in Mira Mesa near San Diego that got us into this, and we've grown it.
The only way you don't actually write code for these.
I do. I wrote it 100%.
What's the interface from that box to your development kit?
A JTAG. So there's an STM JTAG. You can buy them off of eBay, and so you wire it up. So in the other presentation, can you go back to? Can you go back?
It's
to
a- yeah.
Wondering if you needed
It's a USB thing.
I'll just show.
Want to configure something at the last minute,
So in the back of this,
right?
there's also the JTAG interface. So you put your JTAG to here, plug your JTAG into the USB stick, and the STM development kit, QB, knows how to talk to the JTAG. From there, I can get breakpoints for the heat stack memory. That's your question? Okay. All right, so. Oh, yeah, I already did it, but it was this connector here over here. Also, not only does it have the UART in it, it has the JTAG interface in it too. So they can flash new images at will. Right on the flight line, whatever you want to do. All right, I think for me, that's about a wrap. Good.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
You ever, there's this guy I was watching on YouTube, is a meteorologist. His name's Reed Timmer. And he's a tornado chaser, and he's a PhD meteorologist, and he's putting drones up into tornadoes to measure all the, the pressure, the wind, and all this other stuff, and it's just amazing. And he puts together these things, and then all these instruments, and they First he had one that they'd set out on the road and hoped the tornado picked it up.
I saw that one. I was like, that's a 1 in a million shot.
Yeah, and then I guess he got a couple, but now he's got drones and he flies them right into the tornado. And then he's got to go looking for him later.
I'd love to see the drone video from that.
Yeah, he was chasing a tornado a couple nights ago and a bunch of wires came down and he couldn't get to where he thought his drone was. He had to sit there and wait because it was worth more money than, I mean, apparently it's got some expensive stuff in it. And so he had to wait until he could get through to get in there and hunt for his, what's left of his quadcopter.
But I think you said a real key word and you're speaking there is like, he was chasing the tornado and the tornado wasn't chasing him.
Yeah.
I've seen some of those movies where they kind of gets away from them. Also, they become the chasee.
Well, there was one he did a couple of weeks ago that someone else that was also chasing got hit and lost their car. I mean, it just totaled his car and they picked him up and
I like the drone concept a lot.
yeah. Oh yeah. This is those guys are crazy.
So you're saying, how many of these balloons does NOAA release in Southern California every day?
Oh,
said
you
there's
got
two a day?
Miramar is my personal knowledge, 2 a day.
2 a day from Miramar.
From
just
Miramar, and then also Vandenberg.
Uh-huh.
They'll launch 2 a day, and there's other stations like I know there's Arizona, Phoenix will launch from there.
Mhm.
So I think you can count on at least, just from, I could see at least 25, maybe way more than that, of these zones 2 a day. So you've got 50 of these things floating out of the sky every day, but that's a conservative estimate. When they actually launch rockets out of Vandenberg, you'll see 50 of these things go up. You don't want to know everything about the weather.
Is it basically the NOAA weather stations then that send it up like Oxford and things like that or not?
It doesn't have to be, it could be like this SIO group coming off of Catalina that's launching them. The regular ones are, we'll have to look them up where they are, but there's regular ones that they're fixed stations like Miramar. Well, they have an automated system and there's actually pictures of the automated system on the web. Pretty sophisticated. They have this assembly line, stones you line up, poof, and they flash whatever, the NFS, the last minute data, and then up it goes. The balloon fills up and there it goes. And then they get their data and we track them and we go get them.
How far north can you guys track something?
We haven't gone, our payloads typically, they just don't go north. So I know we could at least get up to Dana Point. That's just, okay. So I got to take the stage back here just a second. All right. So Dana Point was the furthest we've gone north. In the summertime, the wind patterns in San Diego will blow that stuff out to sea. In the wintertime, it's east flow out to the desert, Salton Sea, Kingman, Arizona, blah. So Randy, the guy who does the ground station on the mountaintops, decided that he was going to make a buoy zone. So he took one of these things and he converted it into a buoy. And it floated in the ocean for 12 hours. Just float. We got this thing going in circles, just all over the place. So that's how I know it's Dana Point. Because it landed off of Dana Point in the ocean and just kind of did figure eights for 12 hours. Kind of cool. I mean,
Well, we ought to be able to
did
catch
this.
the ones from Vandenberg.
Yeah, they're probably hundreds out there.
If you need to land on Dana Point, you could have put a bigger battery in this.
Yeah.
Get a little propeller on it and send it back home.
So some other interesting things is that on some flights, we don't like to get out of the state. So we'll fill up with enough gas to go up and down. Two flights, we decided, let's just the minimum amount of gas and see how far it goes. So we've been able to get this thing as far east as Yuma, Arizona. Track them. I got pictures of Interstate 10 out of Palm Springs as this thing floated up to Yuma. The other thing that the group has been doing is the extended launch. So they call them floaters. Where it looks like cellophane tape. The balloon looks like cellophane. Cellophane wrap you put on your food and stuff. It looks like that. Very, very fragile. There's one up right now that it's on its 7th trip around the earth. So Randy launched one of those out of his house. He's in his backyard one day. What are these up? So on those, QRP labs, you guys ever hear of QRP labs? Yeah, they have a little kit for the extended flight ones. It runs 100% on solar panels, runs on 20 meters, and it runs on whisper. So Randy's balloon is going around the earth now 7 times. His call sign is, if you want to look it up, is KQ6RS. It's on the presentation. So if you look up KQ6RS on whisper, you'll see his balloon. 7th time around the earth.
Hasn't been shot down yet?
I knew that question was coming. No, it's still operational. It has, obviously, it has anti measures, throws flat.
Yeah. God,
How much payload can a balloon carry? I mean, how much additional weight could you add to it? And
We've
still
had
have
balloons, there's FAA regulations like 3 pounds.
Yeah, okay.
So we've done that with, so I belong to another group. That's where I got the NASA hat from, Arizona Near Space.
Mhm.
We were sponsored to do an Eclipse launch in Montana a few years ago. So I did that payload for that group, and that was like 3.5 pounds. It takes a lot of lift to get 3.5 pounds up. Those balloons are big. And we were doing that. We were doing that big stuff at first. Now we just these small little balloons that the students can handle, very easy, a little bit of gas, and we don't care if we get them back. And there's a lot of learning. So the Weather Service, has actually come out from San Diego and did a special presentation for the students. They did that. YouTube was a Zoom meeting. So SIO and the Weather Service are starting to participate with us. It's really cool.
wow, yeah.
And it won't be long where students will be maybe our next weather forecasters are coming out of what we do. And so the data that they collect is for your 7-day forecast, your 10-day forecast. All these weather zones plug into the model, and because of these, they can get these forecasts pretty darn accurate. Instead of 5 feet of snow, 2 feet of snow or something. Water. My son lives here in Goleta. He's studying for his test, by the way. He's going to get there someday. Son Thomas, almost. He heard that, or he told me that, man, Santa Barbara really got hit during the last floods, the rains.
Yeah, it wasn't nearly as bad as it's been in other years, but we got, at my house, I recorded 39.75 inches of rain
Oh my gosh.
for the season. Yeah.
That's
I was hoping to get over 40. It's never gotten that high. I've lived here for a long time. Since Eisenhower, I think.
Felt like a lot of rain. Felt like a lot of rain going back to Phoenix.
Yeah, yeah. It's hydrogen. Isn't it?
well. So when we launch with the students, it's helium. We get it from air gas.
Okay.
So air gas, we fill our tanks for helium. There was a time we couldn't get it, but now we can get it again. And then we also use hydrogen. So we're doing a mentor only flight, just us, test flight or whatever, experimental flight out of Randy's backyard or whatever. We use hydrogen. We've purposely lit one of these balloons with hydrogen to see what it would do. Doesn't do anything. The hydrogen has to mix with oxygen in order, and it has to be contained, like in your internal combustion engine. Just was very uneventful. Just went
the humanity or
nothing. And so it actually, we talked about this a little bit. As the gas burns, it's burning up the oxygen around it, so it's actually putting itself out. So it just burns everything, and it can't get enough oxygen back in. It doesn't go boom.
Is the hydrogen from air gas too?
Yes, both are from air
Are they
gas.
both the same price?
I think it's like 1/4 the price for hydrogen. 1/4. I think we're paying those tanks, $26 a tank for hydrogen. Very inexpensive. The tank, yeah. You can go back a few slides there. We'll show you a picture of the tank. 26 bucks to fill it.
That was one with the picture of the kids
Students,
in
yeah,
there.
yeah. You see the tank laying there on its side?
So how many balloons can you fill with that?
Oh, I think we get like 10 balloons out of that tank.
$2.5 a balloon.
Yeah, yeah, about right. Yeah.
I thought you were gonna light the end of that and it was on wheels and you were gonna see how fast it went.
My physics professor did that in a fire extinguisher and in college at UCSB, because we were studying for every reaction, there's an equal and opposite reaction. The helmet on went across in front of the lecture hall with 1,000 kids watching him.
That's
Well-
the kind of,
You know, you can sit on with a battery powered leaf blower. You can sit on a little kid's tricycle or something and take off down the street.
have you tried this?
No, but I've seen that's on YouTube. There's a lot of them. Before and after pictures too.
You can do it on a skateboard. You can stand.
Yeah, you could do it on a skateboard.
But can you hear Randy's balloon if you tune into the right frequency?
Randy's balloon?
The-
Oh, yeah. Well, so you have a whisper. So Randy's balloon, the long duration balloon, whisper receiver, you probably, if it's near, yeah, it's not 20 meters, so you're getting propagation.
Right.
So there's a worldwide system on whisper.
Yeah.
I didn't realize how well filled it was. Almost anywhere where the balloon's at, we're getting signal. It's being tracked. Now during the night, since it's solar only, there's no telemetry. As soon as the sun comes up, well, yeah, it gets alive and starts sending telemetries. It's amazing. I think 7 times around the world. I want to go once. It's gone 7.
How long has it been up?
It's been up since about mid-March. About mid-March, so about a month.
And it's still going.
Still going. It's still going.
Well, don't let those guys in Washington hear about it because they'll go up and shoot it down or
Everybody turn their
something.
cell phone off.
Yeah.
I wonder
Uh-oh. We're on YouTube.
if there's a record for that.
Well, there was a competition. So Randy was competing with the students at University of UCSD, University of California, San Diego. So UCSD, their record was 6. So he said, I'm gonna beat those guys. So he's on 7 now, verified 7.
How big is the balloon? Oh,
It looks like, maybe about this big,
oh,
but
really?
it looks like saran wrap.
Yeah.
It's very, very delicate. And any kind of a leak, you're done. So it's very hard to launch as far as not breaking it.
I think that probably solves a couple of those UFO Twitter things that I saw the other day. What is that thing?
Well, who manufactures these for NOAA? For the,
Let's see, it begins with a K, KT, Kmar. We'll have to look it up on the web,
okay.
but it begins with a K. We use those balloons on a regular basis.
Well, they provide the whole package to the National Weather Service, the balloon and the payload.
Oh, I'm not sure about that. The payload comes, so these come from Visalia. Here's our,
Well, they do.
yeah, this is a manufacturer unto its own for the SOM, Visalia. These are RS-41 Visalia units. And then the balloons are the K, I just can't remember what the name of, but they provided the balloon.
Yeah.
And I think the neck too.
Mhm.
So another windfall, we get these things, when we go get them, we get the necks that come with it.
Mhm.
Because without that, it's hard to fill these balloons. You have, well, how do we do it, right? Well, the necks are already with it.
You're flying the same balloon as weather.
Yeah, we just fly this. So under K-Man or something like that,
Hmm.
it's a very popular weather balloon.
Can you reuse the balloon that comes down, or is it,
Once it pops, it's done.
they make the cellophane one too?
Cellophane, I'm not sure who makes the cellophane one. We'll have to get Randy in here, maybe on YouTube or something if you're interested. But him and another ham with these gloves just holding this cellophane looking thing filled with helium. And they got enough gas into it to just let it go.
Hmm.
And then it goes. If it's been around the world for a month and traveling. And we're not the only one. I mean, you look at the Whisper site, there's a
There's a
bunch
lot of them?
ones up there, yeah. So during the incident that took down one of the balloons over Alaska, or possibly did, I was interested in that balloon, and it just disappeared. So it's very viable that something could have happened. It's coincidental. You know, that time, that place, this thing was on its 5th trip around the world.
They said that it costs the US Air Force $200,000 to shoot down the student balloon.
Yeah, it's not so good.
Yeah.
Well, that was just for the missiles and this flight from the craft, you know. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I heard it was 400,000 for a Sidewinder though. Not
That's
just-
right, that's right.
Yeah.
Sidewinder for the big one, the.
$400,000 to shoot down the $50 balloon.
And there's a senator from Arizona already starting to litigate, saying if we want to pass legislation that these balloons should be restricted, blah, blah, blah. So with the senators from Arizona, so the Arizona Near Space Research Group, I was just on the call last night with these guys. They approached the senator. They actually got to sit down with the senator for 15 minutes and said, no, don't do that. You know, this stuff's been going on forever. And there's a lot of student value. And to take that away for a misidentification. So I'm trying to get a hold of our senator, you know, and say, hey, look, we have the ability. We know where these things are all the time. It's part of what we do, right? Let us let us work with the FAA to open up a portal into the radar systems where we can report these balloon locations. So you know if you're interested where everything is. And so I used to fly. And so VFR was 1200, Squawk 1200. And then TRACON could just filter that out. I don't want to see those, you know, I'm not interested. I want to see the big boys. But if I did want to see you, I could unfilter 1200 and see all the VFR traffic. So the same thing could be had with these balloons, is that if the FAA would open up a portal, we'd post to that. And if they wanted to see what was in that area, they could easily just do it. And so I'm trying to get through the right side. If anybody knows our senator, let me know. Try to get I wrote letters, nothing coming back yet.
He was here 2 days ago. I went to a seminar that she did about housing.
Who was here?
For the day now.
The housing, they're gonna build on plan anything.
Oh,
Yeah.
is it the California Center or United States Center? Because the United States Center is what I want to get to.
Oh,
Oh, is it Senator Atkins?
You mean, the moment?
yeah.
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 Monica
That's the US Senator that,
the moment.
okay. Well, maybe I get enough, you know, I've already written to my local senator, state senator, Senator Atkins, and my congressman, but they're just like not answering me back.
Well, what you want to do then is try and get publicity on your own,
Well, I can do that.
you know, that's
That's my
something.
job. but I can do that.
It's the only way you can get them to pay attention to you is you become the news or something. You know, call somebody up if, you know, next time, say, you know, oh, we know, you know, they'll get you on television and then, you know, saying, oh, that was a ham radio balloon. And they could find out, all they got to do is ask us, you know, or we could make that data available to them.
Yeah, I've thought about that. Maybe that is a route.
Yeah, I mean, you just, I had several times and I wanted to get the attention of people, you know, and a couple times, and you got to just make a lot of noise so that so news people call them up and say, hey, did you know that these hams in San Diego can tell you where every ham balloon is at any given time? And and then you don't have to worry about them. You can cross those off the list.
Yep.
You know, they always want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Oh, we'll just outlaw them, you know, and
The thing we've got going for us is that so many of these things go up every day.
yeah,
So this would, the exemption for these would apply to us maybe by grandfathering because we're using the same payload, right?
yeah.
So if it's okay for the weather service, won't it be okay for the hams? And then they'll probably do something stupid like lock the ARM processor. We can never load our stuff in there again. Or,
Yeah, like
who
they
knows?
did with the like for mesh nodes.
Is
and
it
stuff.
locked now?
Oh, yeah, they made all those, all new, I think they figured out a way to do it, but a lot of the new stuff from Ubiquity is locked. You can't get it into the ham band.
You're kidding me.
Mm-mm.
Even if you buy it from Europe.
I don't know about that. But you can't coax them down into channel, the channels below the
-2, I call it.
-2, yeah.
Yeah.
They've fixed that. Now, why, I don't know. Wasn't hurting anybody. If nothing else, it was selling more Ubiquity.
When did that start?
A couple of years ago.
Oh my God.
And now I think everything's locked down like that.
That's a shame.
Yeah. I think TP-Link, you can still reflash them, but all right. Well, that was a great presentation.
Almost 9 o'clock. Well, we
Yeah.
had a fun time, huh? Fun group.
I think he came further than a lot of presenters over the years, along with San Diego to here.
Yeah, but come up and visit my son. So
Well, yeah.
yeah. Wow. That LA traffic though.
Are you with San Diego Padres?
I'm rooting for him, that's.
Isn't there a website that actually tracks the NOAA balloons? I feel like I bumped into it once.
Yeah. So we were able to see that on the. We're self-posting. So the other, I don't know the OEM site, but the hams will receive it posted to Soda. So I'm not sure, but I bet there is.
So all the balloon launches from Catalina Island, they're with scripts.
Yeah.
It's not NOAA, it's scripts that are doing this.
Yeah, it was SIO.
Okay.
They had a special grant to study the atmospheric rivers. They were having problems receiving, and then so they reached out to us. They used our mountaintop receiver sites, that rack there. One of those Raspberry Pis with the little RTL receiver
Yeah.
was doing the job.
Oh.
We have 1, 2, 3 different AIS receivers for ships traffic, one out on Santa Cruz Island and one up on San Ynez Peak and then one down on the Mesa. And I wrote software to decode all that stuff coming in from those 3 stations. And then I take the sentences that they're interested in and I log it all. And I do a little math on it too to show distances from, like I produce one set of log files. It gives the distance from the Santa Barbara Harbor and the bearing, because it's all easily, you have the coordinates of the ship. And so you just do the Cartesian math to figure out the bearing, so they can look at one of our logs and say, if they're out at the harbor, they can say, oh, this one's 17 miles southwest, exactly from their coordinate. But anyway, I produce a bunch of different kinds of log files for them that they, and if they go down, I never hear from them, but when they go down, I hear from them, something they can't get on, if the internet's down or something like that. So it's kind of interesting. They used it in a big research thing and sent me a copy of the thing and we got an honorable mention at the end, you know, and we provided all the data for them.
Interesting hobby. So you guys wanna go get something to eat?
Well, that's that'd be good.
Okay, guys, I'm gonna kill the Zoom meeting.
By the way, it came on.